It's been 2 months since the Palisades and Eaton fires ravaged through LA County. I'm Leslie Swan with the Swan Team Real Estate, and back when the fires were still burning, I interviewed insurance expert Mo Haggag about exactly what was going on, what victims were going through, what they can expect from their insurance, and what homeowners in California can expect moving forward. Now, fast forward 2 months. What's going on? I wanted an update from Mo. So I interviewed him and have more information about exactly what the claim process has been, what victims have been experiencing, and what California homeowners can expect in the future and what they can do to protect their homes. So please be sure to watch the entire interview so that you can get all the information you need to know to protect yourself, protect your home and your loved ones, and ultimately be prepared for the future of living in California. About 2 months ago, we had a Zoom call because of the LA fires and all the questions that were surrounding insurance and people not being covered. And so I wanted to do a second interview with an insurance expert, Mo Haggag. And so he is here to join us today to answer some questions that we're 2 months out now. And what's next? I mean, information about the fires is no longer on the news. It's not flashy and, they don't have great visuals or anything. So, but these people are still completely out of their homes. And how does this affect all of us as California residents, as residents of other states? What are we going to expect from insurance in general? So I wanted to ask Mo, an expert. So welcome, Mo. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me again.
Awesome. So let's just kind of get right into it with the status of fire insurance in California. What is the status? Can someone buying a new property get fire insurance? Is there still a moratorium? What's going on?
So the moratoriums have been lifted for the most part,
Okay.
but we found that a couple of companies kind of shifted their maps around and zip codes and added a few new restrictions since the fires. Some that make sense,
I'm
and
sorry. So they changed their maps. So like certain areas of
so they would add different zip codes to what they deem brush areas.
Oh, okay. So they
Yeah.
probably made those wider.
Yeah, so I mean they've restricted us a little bit more from writing, and one of the places which was shocking was Costa Mesa. I didn't understand that one, but that one shocked me a little bit. But it's an ever-changing ecosystem right now. That's the best way to put it.
So Costa
There
Mesa
have
is now
also
considered
been
a higher fire risk.
yes, but there are also new smaller companies that are starting to come into the market.
Okay.
So we can get a little bit more into that later. It's constantly changing right now, but I think the biggest thing to from your point, and how it's not in the news anymore, and people are still out of their homes, and this is something that the insurance industry is going to learn from and study for years to come, and it's going to cause a lot of changes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So big companies are still actually writing fire insurance policies.
So State Farm's still not writing, Allstate's still not writing, Farmers is writing very limited, and they have a lot of contingencies.
Okay.
Um, and you've got to jump through every hoop you can possibly think of to get insurance with them. But it's doable. And we have still, the Bamboos, the Aegis, there's other companies out there that are writing in the state, but very selectively.
Okay. And then like when you mentioned bamboo, that's not one that's approved by
No,
the.
no, Bamboo is an admitted carrier,
Okay.
and they do have a non-admitted side as well,
Okay.
but they are an admitted carrier. There's several smaller admitted carriers that are still operating in the state.
Okay. And what about the Cal Fair plan? Are they writing policies?
They are. Yes, they never really stopped writing policies. They
Okay.
were the
So
only
they
ones that
not
were
even
still
have a
writing. Oh, they had a moratorium for
report?
a certain period of time in that area, but they were still writing in Southern California, whereas other companies, we had a moratorium across the board in all of SoCal during that fire.
Okay. And I guess that then leads me to the question though about Cal Fair. I mean, I know we had kind of discussed that it was potentially bankrupt back in January. So is it getting money? What is going on? How is it getting money?
We don't have answers.
Okay.
We still don't have those answers. The numbers are kind of still, they're still adding it all up. Not all the claims have been filed.
Okay.
There's still a lot of unknown. So we do know that um, the insurance companies are going to have to foot the bill. And that's why State Farm is asking for that emergency 22% increase, which was denied. And they had another hearing about it recently and again said, we understand you denied, but we really need this. Otherwise, we have to rethink our position in California. So while this tug of war is going on between the Department of Insurance and State Farm, and I keep mentioning them because they are the number one insurer in California. So
Okay.
they hold the most policies in California. So when that bubble is burst, they have to foot the most of the bill. And so yeah, that we'll see what happens with that. But if they don't get this 22%, rumor has it, and don't quote me on this because this is what's out there, that they may non-renew all of California.
Okay.
That would cause a lot of things to happen, but there would be a fallout from that, obviously. Yeah, there's
Okay.
way too many homeowners in the state for all the other carriers to absorb it quickly. So it'll cause where carriers are maybe growing too big for their liking and taking on too much risk. And there's just so much unknown, but there's a lot to it, and right now we're just waiting for more information.
Okay. And you mentioned new carriers kind of coming in the mix. So, I mean, some people are looking at this as an opportunity of, okay, we're going to kind of start our own new insurance industry or company.
Company, yeah, yeah. They go through the admission process with the Department of Insurance, and they do have to go through the guidelines to be an admitted carrier. But we are seeing smaller companies that I've never heard of before that are starting to come into the market.
Okay. And I mean, obviously you've never heard of them. Have you done any research to find out like where their backing or their money is coming from or anything?
No, I haven't done anything like that because there's not it's not a flood of companies that are coming in.
I would imagine. Yeah.
There's nothing that is alarming, and they have to go through a process. It's a hard process to go through with the Department of Insurance before they get approved to sell in the state. So I would assume the due diligence done by the state is enough, and I don't have to go digging through that.
Yeah, that's for them to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So speaking of the Department of Insurance, have they made any specific changes in the past 2 months?
More rate increases were approved. There were smaller ones, not the large ones that the bigger companies are asking for. And when I say the bigger companies, it's because they hold the most amount of footprint in the state. So there has been more rate increases, and there will be more to come.
Okay.
But as far as like new rules or changes to the actual market or anything like that, no, nothing has really changed yet.
Okay. Um, and I think we kind of discussed this before, but I mean, you anticipate that we need to see changes, right? In California?
Yeah, this is a slippery slope because it's going to take government officials at the end of the day to make those decisions and start changing how we deal with brush in the state. And yeah, I don't want to get political, but we've gotten here for a reason, and I don't know if we have the budget to really do what is necessary, but it needs to be figured out.
Okay. Yeah. Um, yeah, again, of not wanting to get too political, but there I have understood that I feel like something was voted for where brush was supposed to be cleared. Do you recall that?
I did, but I mean, it's not being talked about,
Okay.
and we're not right now. Everybody's talking about the fallout of insurance
Okay.
and how insurance prices are through the roof. But we're going to continue to see these things climb here as long as we keep having these huge disasters.
Yeah.
Um, something has to change at the end of the day. But and I don't haven't heard of anything changing yet.
Okay.
Uh,
Um, so, and I guess that kind of leads me to my next question about changes. I mean, I know that I have already seen an increase to my auto policy because it renews every 6 months. And basically, when I called to say, hey, why did my auto insurance go up? They said, oh, it's because of shared risk. Um, so, what changes should California residents in general expect in their home and auto insurance policies?
I'm going to tell you why they quoted shared risk. Um, when you're driving down the highway heading towards LA, you see a lot of billboards, and a lot of those billboards have lawyers on them,
Mhm.
right? Because it's a huge industry here in California, but it needs to be regulated. There's a lot of insurance fraud that happens in the state, and that is driving up price because litigation cost and settlements cost. We're not talking $5,000. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars when there's lawyers involved, tens of thousands of dollars in the minimum. Um, there needs to be change, and that whole industry needs to be put on a leash.
Yeah.
That's
It's
my
interesting you
personal
bring that
opinion
up.
on
I
that,
can,
of
I can
course.
think of like I
Yeah.
can think of like five auto accident insurance lawyers, and all
Because you hear it
the
and you see
and
it all
all
the
that
time. They're
stuff.
all over the radio, they're all over your TV, and they're all over billboards everywhere. It's an
Yeah,
industry, okay? And these guys are taking advantage of what's out there and what's not regulated right now.
yeah.
And so I think regulation needs to happen there.
Okay.
Um, that would really help the insurance industries and maybe, start to drive prices back down if they don't have to pay out the millions and millions and millions of dollars in these claims. And I mean, there's a lot of them are not real. They're fraudulent claims. We're talking, somebody gets bumped going 5 miles per hour and all of a sudden their back and neck hurt and things like that. And there's instances where older people may experience things like that. And usually if you're younger, you don't, you're walking right away from that. There's nothing there, but they're taking advantage of it. But anyway, that's not the only thing.
Okay.
Everything has gone up in price.
Yeah.
Everything, including your eggs, your milk, everything you at the grocery store, right? Insurance is no different. They have to buy parts, they have to pay for the labor. When inflation hit a couple years ago, the insurance industry experienced hyperinflation because they're paying on both fronts, both the labor and the material. And a lot of the material is coming from overseas. And now we have tariffs on a lot of the stuff that are coming in from overseas. What nobody's talking about is what is this going to do to my insurance cost? Because they have to get those parts
Yeah. Or that
seats.
or that lumber or what, yeah. I mean, for
Sure.
the house. I mean,
Yeah.
I can only imagine now the cost if these tariffs stay in place, the cost of building a home is going to go up tremendously. Yeah.
Yep. And what
And
does
then
that mean for rebuild cost, right? And when we do the replacement cost estimators, we have to insure your home properly. I mean, we look at the economy. The material is going to cost X, the labor is going to cost X, and if there's tariffs on top of this stuff, these prices are all going to go up,
yeah,
right? So Californians find themselves in a pickle here because you've got your insurance is already going up because of all these fires and everything that's happening in the state. Whereas now, countrywide, we have tariffs, and it's also going to be driving those costs up eventually. This is a perfect storm for change. Something needs to happen, and it's kind of scary. I think we should all be worried about it and keep an eye on it, and we should be talking about it.
yeah, for sure. Because these tariffs, I mean, are essentially going to be passed on to the insurance companies.
Absolutely. And then the consumer, at the end
Yeah,
of the day, it's always passed on to the consumer.
exactly. Okay. Fun. So getting back to kind of where we started with the LA fire victims, I know when we last spoke, you had mentioned you had some clients. So what is the process that they're still going through? And, any specific examples, obviously not giving names or anything, but
Yeah,
any,
yeah, no, I
any
mean,
cases of your clients that, what's going on with them?
yeah, we had clients on kind of both ends of the spectrum. One that was able to just go buy another house and live elsewhere, and took that money and went and just bought another house.
Wait, they already got all their money?
Well, if you're gonna go buy another house, it really simplifies the process a lot, especially if your home was paid off.
Oh, okay. Obviously, yeah.
Okay, so it really simplifies the process. You're getting the value of your home if your new home matches that value, or we will give you that, and then anything over it will come out of your pocket, basically.
So,
Okay,
I mean, so, but
really simplified the process.
one of your clients has already gotten like the check from, or the money wire from the insurance company?
The insurance companies have paid out anybody that's opened a claim. You get almost instantly 250 grand the minute you open a claim,
Really?
depending on your limits, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, the minute when the fires happened, a lot of money was dispersed
Okay.
instantly. Okay, that's why you saw numbers coming out like State Farm's already paid 1 billion. Okay,
Okay.
it's now well over that, and not all the claims have been filed yet. So, yeah, it's not there. There was no period of time where they left people without, and because people had to go find places to live like right away, right? You had to go to a hotel. If a hotel was full, you needed an Airbnb, and that's when it gets a little bit more costly, right? So they had to take care of people right away. And another client went through the process. They were put in a hotel. The insurance company pays for everything, of course, and then they find them a home and they move into that home. There are still people in hotels because there's just not enough rentals in that area to absorb the amount of people that were displaced.
For sure.
So, yeah,
Yeah, and I
that.
know we had a fair amount of people who, came down to Orange County for rentals and stuff like that,
Mhm.
just to,
Yeah,
because
they went kind of all over the place.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Sorry. And I don't mean to like hang on to your client. I'm just wowed by the fact that someone actually got paid, and remind me, they get paid out just for the rebuild cost or
Yes, no, they get paid out for the rebuild cost. Their loss of use, of course, was already paid out the day they opened the claim, which, helped the process along. They had to live somewhere while their home was burnt and going through escrow. So, and the personal property was paid out. So they've taken care of this client, A to Z. Everything was paid out.
okay.
Yeah.
So, but we take an area like Pacific Palisades, for example, where in reality, the cost of building a home might be 800,000 to 1 million, but someone paid 4.5 for it. So they get paid, let's say 1 million, because that's the cost to rebuild. They
Mhm,
still own the land, right?
mhm. Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, and what's challenging is if you own a $4.5 million home in Pacific Palisades and you're given $1 million, that's not unfortunately going to go very far to their standards potentially, in elsewhere in California. So that's just where people have to just kind of do it on
Yeah,
their
yeah. I mean, we don't insure the land,
Yeah,
and the land's value is the land's value.
sure.
That's yours still. You could, of course, sell it and get your profit, but yes, they only pay for the actual structure.
Okay. And do you know, I mean, are people already potentially selling their land?
There are land sales out there.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
they're just like, forget it, I'm moving. I mean, okay.
absolutely, absolutely, yes.
Interesting. So let's see. I guess a couple of questions. Well, it's basically the same. I mean, what can people do? I'm first of all, sorry, let me say I'm really glad to hear that insurance companies are um, paying out. I mean, I have heard some horror stories about the itemizing and all of that. That's getting kind of crazy. But I'm glad to hear that it sounds like people are pretty well taken care of now. I guess I would imagine there are people though that were renters. So what happens to those people?
Well, they get paid out also on their personal property.
Okay.
So that's basically
If they had renters
if
insurance.
they had renter's insurance, of course, yes. And that number is something that the insured is the one that determines that number. We always give suggestions, of course. You should have at least 20,000 per person that lives in your home. But that's not always the case. People will sometimes get less and sometimes they'll get more. But ultimately, there's a limit on what you can get with the renter's insurance, and it's very different than a homeowner's policy, but they were paid out for their personal property for sure. And there is loss of use coverage in rental as well that helped them with the transitioning.
Okay. Um, so for everyone else, what can people do to protect their home, period? And also, what can people do to protect their homes from fires?
I get a lot of phone calls of people that tell me, I'm not in a brush area. If you live in Southern California, you're in a brush area. That's kind of the way the insurance companies are looking at it right now. Now, there are some areas in Southern California that are less prone to the brush fires, but when these events happen and you see what the winds can potentially do and how quickly it can spread these fires, they're not wrong. You're in a brush area, okay? Especially if you're in an area where it gets those high winds.
Yeah.
Um, Things you can do and things some insurance companies are already starting to ask their insureds to do to continue their policies. Box your eaves. That is the biggest one that they ask for right now. And I believe there is now code that passed, and so it's law that between your home, you have to have a 5 foot buffer of non-flammable material. That means a lot of people need to also change their fencing and anything that touches their home to metal, basically, or iron, or some sort of non-flammable material.
Okay.
So it's yeah, there's a lot of change that you can look at your home and you can put a buffer around your entire home of just making sure you don't have any dry vegetation that's nearby.
Okay.
That's another thing. So if you're in a brush area, insurance companies are already asking you to start doing these things. It is a little expensive to box your eaves, but
And can
it
you
will.
explain what does boxing eaves to
Yeah.
everyone?
So a lot of people don't know what eaves are. So I'll start there. Let's say this is your home, right? And then this is the first wall of your home. This area here is an eave.
Mhm.
Okay. And these are open areas, and sometimes they have holes that connect to your attic, right?
Yes.
So when winds and embers are flying around and carrying this fire, if they hit your roof, usually it's okay, it'll just burn out. But if they get underneath, they'll start a whole new fire inside your home. So if you box the eaves and put a material that's non-flammable there, you can't get those embers that will fly underneath and set your roof on fire and eventually collapse your home. Um, that is the big one. It's probably the most expensive one, but it's the most recommended.
Okay. Cool. That's good to know.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
and
I
then I
know
guess,
I've been emailing you. What about the
what is
Lexus?
one piece of advice you would give a homeowner in California right now?
No problem. Okay, so I'll remove.
Don't yell at your insurance agent.
Okay.
It's not their fault, but there are more rate increases coming. So brace yourselves there and prepare for it. Put aside a little bit more for insurance, maybe. Um, there are more changes coming. Uh, this isn't over yet, but we don't have all the information yet. When we talk again in a few months, hopefully, then we'll be a little bit further along and hopefully have more information. But it's just ever changing right now. It's not personal. When you get that bill and you open it in your home, it feels very personal. It's not a personal attack on people. We're all in California together, and insurance is one big bowl. It's a shared risk, and so costs are going up. I would prepare for it. That's the best advice I can give anybody.
Okay. And what's the best way people can get in touch with you, Mo?
$28.
Oh, so we're an all-state agency here in Mission Viejo. You can call us 949-582-9252, or you can email me directly, and that would be mhaggag@allstate.com.
Awesome.
And that's
Thank you
just,
so
well,
much,
that's
Mo.
because
Again, if anyone has any questions about
policy.
insurance, definitely reach out to Mo. Of course, if you have any
Won't have a
questions about real estate, you can reach out to me. Thank you so much, Mo. I really
My
appreciate
pleasure.
the time.
Yeah, sorry for the background noise. It's starting to get busy up in the morning.
That's all right. It's a busy business day. So thank you
Yeah.
so much.
All righty. Thanks,
Okay.
Leslie.